On today's episode of the Command Center podcast, we got to get going because Dan Quinn's in the building. Raise hail. It all starts right now. Welcome to the Command Center podcast. I'm Logan Paulson here with Fred Smoot and Santana Moss. And as always, we are presented by Cognier Technology. Secure today and shape tomorrow. We've got a very special show today.
Yes, we do.
Why is that, Fred?
The one and only Coach Quinn.
Coach Quinn
will be gracing us with his presence today as we pick his brain on what makes a commander a commander.
That's exactly right. And I think, to kind of lead into that conversation, our Risk It for the Biscuit today is about cultivating championship culture, right? So in terms of Risk It for the Biscuit, it's like we're risking building a championship culture because a lot of people have tried it. Mm-hmm. A lot of people haven't done well.
Yeah.
And as always, that segment, Risk It for the Biscuit, is presented by Marsh McLennan Agency, your partner in risk and people strategies. So to me, I guess like the first thing to just kind of touch on, highest of levels, is what is good culture?
Well, it's the good culture starts off like this. First of all, presented by Cognier Technology.
What are you talking about over there?
Secure tomorrow, because I felt like you left it out.
I said it already, man. Are you trying to do my job, man?
No, I just felt like you left it out. double. I'm just double checking to make sure this dude is on his toes.
Because that's important. They pay the bills.
You got to pay the sponsor,
They pay the bills, man. So if I missed it, and if we didn't, we got it double. So
and if you missed it, that means you risk it for the biscuit. That's what I'm telling you. Like, so everything's rubbing together.
And that's presented by Marsh McLennan. We just keep reading sponsors for the rest of this.
Bought by Logan's Training.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? These abs are brought to you by Logan. This is what happens when you work out with Logan.
Don't say that. No one wants that. No one wants that to happen.
Beer belly.
Beer belly and bad backs, man. I'm not selling that. That's not something I want to put my stamp on. So yeah, good culture. Good culture. What is it? I mean,
it's easier said than described and done. You don't know it till you see it. It's like a good marriage.
Yeah.
Like, you know one when you see it, and the recipe to their good marriage might not be the recipe to your good marriage.
Yeah, to the next person's own. I think culture is one of those things that you can identify and not even be a part of what's going on. You know what I mean? Like, you can be a person on the outside looking in and say, oh, they got something. They got something over there.
Yeah.
And you heard some of the guys, some of the new, acquisitions, like they was like, bro, like, you heard, I think what was his name, Josh Jones or Jonathan Jones. Jonathan Jones said, man, I'm watching these guys play and how they went after each other on, how they kind of, flew around to the football and how they, they basically communicated with each other, and not on just one side of the ball, as a team, as a whole. Yeah. He's like, you can see every man for each other. They plan for one another. They're not just out there freelancing, trying to be me players and go out there and, get sacks or, make stops on their own or do things individually. And you asked the question about culture because a lot of times in the NFL, you don't get those many. The teams that win the Super Bowls, they have a culture.
They got a culture.
They have a standard.
We've seen it.
And we've been on teams that haven't won.
Yes.
So you can see what it's not like.
It's not
you know what I mean? When it's not there. In college, I feel like I've had that. And I remember it was just like one band, one sound. Like we all moved to the same beat.
Yep.
And like I said before, we didn't have to tell each other to do it.
It was built in already.
You know what I mean? We just knew in order for me to make this squad, in order for me to play my part of what we're trying to do and who we're trying to be, I have to do X, Y, Z. And I think that's what you see here from day one. We've seen these guys step on that field, and you can be like, we've been here. So we was like, oh, it's something different.
If I had to put it in words and statements, I guess I started out with the first word.
That's usually how people talk.
Yeah. If I had to start out with the first word, thank you, it'll be selfless. When you get a 53 selfless dudes, and if I had to put it in a phrase, Santana, you'll know exactly what movie this phrase came from. Am I my brother's keeper? Right? Yes, I am. And when you have that, meaning I'm playing for y'all playing for me. Yeah. I got your back no matter what. You can feel it walking through the building.
Yeah.
You can feel it because it's a trickle-down effect that goes with teaching. Like, I'm always truthful about my coaching thing. When I first got drafted to the league, my first head coach was Marty Schottenheimer. Marty is a disciplinarian, kind of militaristic. He was kind of like that. But you could talk to him.
Yeah.
Right? And I thrive under that. Still gonna let me be myself. I don't mind being coached hard. I don't mind being put out there. My next coach was Coach Spurrier. All right? I loved the old ball coach. Had fun losing with the old ball coach. But you know what I'm saying? Losing. Not because he wasn't a good coach.
Yeah.
Because he had no culture.
Yeah.
He brought a college culture from Florida with most of the college coaches. Marvin Lewis was one of the few pro coaches we had, and him and Marvin bumped heads all the time about how things are being done. But you can't blame Coach for that because he hadn't been in the pros yet.
Yeah,
so it's like sometimes it goes without saying, and sometimes people walk in and the culture follows them. Dan Quinn walked in and his culture followed him. The way he treats people followed him. The way people respect him followed him. That's difference.
Yeah, it sounds, you guys just was writing stuff down when you were talking because culture is like a weird thing to talk about. You know what I mean?
Because you can't touch, see, or feel it.
And one of my favorite things you said in that you said a lot of really good, both of you guys said a lot of good stuff, but it's like a marriage, right? What works for one person's marriage doesn't work for your marriage, right? And I think it's different, situational dependent, but in terms of tenants, right? I do think there's a selflessness, right? Which you talked about, one band, one sound, people all pulling together, kind of working in the same direction. And then it sounds like there's a disciplinary standard to a certain extent. So even like, people talk about, he's a Bill Belichick style coach, which means he's very austere and very militant. Yeah. But also like there's Mike Shanahan, who's a player's coach. And I felt like in 2012, Tana, like we had a really good culture here, right? And it was a little bit more flexible. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And I think the one underlying tenet of both of those things, right? And what makes it work is that if you win, you got a good culture.
Got a good culture.
Is that? I mean, would you guys agree with that?
Yeah, I do. But we didn't start out winning with Coach Gibbs, but they knew we had a good culture.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely got to. Yeah, that's a great point. You got to build to it. But
you got to build to it.
Yeah. But like, let's say for example, like you had been with Coach Gibbs, and you'd lost 5 games. Like you had 5 losing seasons, right? At some point, you're like, even though this feels right, it's not getting us where we want to go.
We're not turning the page.
And some of the time it's just because you're missing a couple of players to add to what you're doing. Like you can have the right program. We've seen many teams that have, like you talk to guys that's been around this league, and you could come from a team where you had a bunch of, all-stars or Pro Bowl caliber guys. They might not
didn't win.
Yeah, if you ain't winning with those guys, then what's the use of having them? Then you see those guys on other teams where they don't have the players, but man, they have the coaching staff.
Connectivity.
They have, they have the unity. They have everything that you would want to be a part of. But it's just not enough playmakers on either side of the football to allow them to get over the hump. So there's both things could be right. You see what I'm saying? Like you can have a culture and not win, and you can also have good players and not really have a coach.
Yeah, because that's what they did here the year before I got here. Yeah. They went bought Dion, Dana Stubblefield. They put together an all-star team on paper, but they never developed into an all-star team.
What's more sustainable, having the culture or having the players?
Culture.
Bingo.
Because the players going to come and go.
Yeah, and I think that's something else too, is like when you're building a team, like I've thought about this a lot. That's just team building, just construction in general. Like you can get the best 22 players in the world on one team, and you're probably going to be pretty good, but they might not jive, right? Yeah. So they might actually be worse than the sum of their parts. Yeah. And when Tana said like one band, one sound, like when you get, again, I think back to 2012, which is the best season I had at any level of football in my whole life, right? So it was like you got a bunch of dudes that were like maybe not the biggest names. Like I think about the O-line, I think about the receiving core, like not a bunch of like
households.
Yeah, but like they just played ball hard. They bought in. They played for each other. Yeah. And there's something really cool about that. And I do think in the NFL, that's the ideal, right? Yeah. And you can get there through a disciplinarian, but like play for each other, basically, right? And I think that's what Dan did here last year. But the thing that gets me, it's like it's really hard to do that at the NFL because there's so many other variables that come into it.
And that's what a coach job is to do, change my purpose. Everybody got a purpose.
I love that.
Everybody got a purpose to play when they play in this game. And usually, from the time we're small, as much as we want that money, we just want to be in the NFL. Yeah. Like we want to get to the big games and we want to play in the big games. All right. So it started off very honest. All right? I just want to be a pro, prove that I can play with pros. Then, come on, you can't run from the fact that it's financially there. If you're a coach and you can get 53 guys to push the financials to the side and say, y'all will all get paid if we do this. If we get to the point that we are successful. That's what the best coaches do. Coach Gibbs didn't have to say a word. You never heard a player go against Coach Gibbs with financials. Because he running that house too clean.
Is that because you felt like Coach Gibbs cared about you?
He cared about us as people.
Yeah, he did care.
He cared about us as a person.
I think too what Fred trying to say is that when you show a player that the move I'm making is going to better you and better us, then you don't have to question him. You see what I'm saying?
I think about the thing that Mike did with you.
Yeah, you see what I'm saying?
Like,
and I had to grow on me. You know, but at the same time,
for those who don't listen to the podcast, like Tana went from basically the 2 to the 3.
So I was the guy for a long time already. Mike comes in. Mike first 2 years, I was still the guy. Mike Shanahan, I was still 2010. I still was the number 1 receiver. 2011, I was still number 1 receiver. But that 2011 season is when I broke my hand. That season didn't pan out the way I wanted to be. Coming in 2012, we bring in Pierre and a bunch of young talent, and they like Tana. Just watching you over the years. You're in too much. You don't necessarily have to be in as much. You still can separate. You still can do all this stuff with the best, but you're getting older. I want to save your legs. I'm gonna make you a slot receiver. So what you think about that? Nah, coach. I ain't thinking about that. No, I'm telling you, this is gonna be better. And as a player, like I'm not the me guy. I've never been him. But I love this game, and I only play it one way. And I'm only going to go out there, and as much as I want to be that guy, I'm going to do what's right for us, especially if it's going to still benefit me. So when he broke it down at that level and say, well, Tanner, look, now you coming in on third down when the ball is going to either you or one of the guys on the outside, instead of you being in there. And then I thought about it, as a ball player, I'm like, well, you're right. I am getting up there. But the key word he said was, this is going to extend your career. This is going to help you play more years. And then I was sold, you know what I mean? So you get guys that might get it that way, and then you get some guys that just screw what you're saying, Coach. I feel like I'm this guy. I got to be this guy. And if you don't like it, then send me elsewhere or cut me,
I mean, I think that hits on 2 things that I think are really interesting. One, obviously Mike cared about you.
Bingo.
Right? But also, you have to have the right kind of people in the building. You know what I'm saying? They're like that jive with the culture. Like not everybody could play in New England when Tom Brady was there. Because Bill Belichick was an absolute psycho.
Yeah, most definitely.
Like it's not like it was like the worst spot in the world to work.
No, just militant. That's all. Just very militant.
But I'm saying like you need to make sure that you've got someone who cares and is motivated by you, but also someone who fits, right? And I think when you look at the culture here that they've built, right? Obviously, like the things you're talking about, Dan's able to show that he cares about players because he does. That's how he's wired.
He is.
Very personable.
He's a ball coach.
They've also brought in guys that I think can that relates to. You know what I mean? That they understand it, and they're willing to make some compromises and do some different things because they're team first guys. It's already like inherently part of them.
I say when you go out there and the guys that you're signing and drafting from college are captains. The guys that you're cherry picking from other people's teams are captains. They know sacrifice. They know leadership. They understand other guys. All right, so he's going out and saying, I don't need the best athlete. I don't need everybody on my team to run a 4-3 flat. What I need everybody on my team to do is hold each other accountable. Accountability is more than ability to him, to me. Accountability is better than ability because he feel like if you got to this level, you already got ability. All right? I just need your ability plus accountability. I won't take it just one.
And that's what you see. I mean, that's exactly what you see from day one, just how, it's one thing of watching us have a down year, but then having a guy with double-digit sacks, and you say, well, damn, he's doing so good.
What about everybody else?
What about everybody else? And then you realize when you watch that one unit together and say, well, the sacks went down, but we getting more stops.
We winning more games.
You winning more games.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying? And then it shows you like, they're playing together.
Yes, instead of
this
one
guy not out here just doing his own thing. Because he has to be an uber talent to go out there and get those double digit sacks. But when that's not to say that you're not that same talented guy when your sacks go down. It just says you're playing within the defensive structure now. You understand?
It's funny that you brought that up. I remember 2 veterans getting into it when I was a young pup. When we was rookies, Tanner. Many people, everybody knows Bruce Smith, the universal sack leader. Right? When Bruce is here, when I get here, Bruce is 30-odd sacks, 20-odd sacks away from getting his sack record. Marco Coleman is the other defensive end on the other side. Marco plays full football, the run game, everything. Now, I'm on the side of Bruce Smith. And Bruce Smith is swimming people on first down. Well, this is a rundown. Right? What you swimming people for? You know what I'm saying? But in the back of our head, we know he wants this.
Yeah.
So him and Marco getting Eddie on the sideline. And Marco said, I know how bad you want this sack record, but the rest of us want to win this game today. All right? Today, we want
That's good leadership.
And that's what Marco Coleman was.
Yeah.
Great leader.
Could you imagine the courage? I want to say something else, but the courage it would take to go up to Bruce Smith,
Yes,
and be like, bro, get it together.
like, bro, you swimming people on first down,
Like,
and they toss sweeping the ball to a 180-pound corner. Like, don't do that.
That's cool. I got kind of chill. Like, it's so funny in my old age, man. I get chills thinking about stuff like that because I know how hard it is for someone to go up to that guy and be like, hey, that ain't right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Don't do that.
That's
that's
sick,
just
man.
like you being a receiver and you know what's going on in the secondary.
Yeah.
And you watching it and you're older now, so you really see it and you're like, okay, I should be open right now. And then you turn around and the quarterback ain't looking at you. Like that, it makes you like, well, damn, we ain't got a chance. Because if you didn't read what I just read,
we ain't on the same
and I'm
page.
on the run, then we ain't got, you know what I mean? Like, you have to see this because I see it.
Yeah.
And we all know pre-snap read is different from once you hike the ball.
Yeah.
But if I hike that ball, when I go back and watch film, and if I see that, like, everything still was wide open, like I said, and you don't get the ball, now you discouraged. I can't trust that guy. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that sounds just like that, you know?
Yeah. That's it. Yeah. I mean, so that's a really cool example of culture, right? And I think the other thing I'd just like to ask you guys, because you guys have been around it for a long time, right, is, how important is culture? Do you need culture to have a winning football team?
I think you got to be some holding y'all together. The culture is the glue.
Because I was thinking about it, like when you look at the Patriots, look at Kansas City Chiefs, look at like they're different cultures.
But they're coaches.
But I can say we've won. I've won without a culture. I won without.
Where you win without coaching?
Right here.
What year would you say we didn't have coaches?
05, 07, we didn't have a coach. You was here.
Well,
we didn't have a coach. We had coaches that was Coach Gibbs was good. He was a great coach, but I don't think we had a culture.
I think our culture happened. We had something that happened that brought us together.
No, he did. He brought us together.
Yeah,
but
tragedy brought us together.
The reason why I say that because I'm saying like when I hear culture, I'm hearing like when I hear culture, this is what I'm envisioning. I'm envisioning guys doing everything by the book. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, but that's not.
But I'm not saying it's not. That's not going to be. But I'm talking about not by the book, as in for what we should do to win games here. You see what I mean? Yeah. Like I'm saying, like you gotta. Coach Gibbs used to tell us this, and this is what you might have a coach because he said this all the time to us. I'm gonna let you be men outside of here. As long as when you come in here between them white lines, it's us. So you know what? I'm a backpedal on that. I think we did have it. It just wasn't what I was used to elsewhere.
Yeah, and I think it was one of them things where Coach Gibbs' culture did not get to shine through. One, because we didn't win at a super high clip, and he didn't have Jaden Daniels. Yeah. Like when you got one of those, it make culture easy. Yeah. Right? Because now one of the best players on my team is saying, all right, if that's how coach want to do it, I'm going to do it the same exact way. Yeah. Right? Tom Brady made that culture in New England.
100%.
Tom made that culture and to bend it to his will when he said, you know what? Peyton getting how much money? I don't need that much. Yeah. Right? I'm going to need this guy. I'm going to need that guy to beat him.
And that's why I kind of like brought that up because I'm like, trust me, bro. Like I still feel like I played on teams where guys was kind of loosey-goosey. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, and I played on teams where guys knew that we only could do so much. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? As a Redskin, most of my team, every year almost, it was guys like, man, I'm out here, I'm gonna be the practice. I don't know if I'm gonna give you all. I don't know if I'm gonna make it to the practice, but I'm gonna be there. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So to me, that's not a culture because most coaches let it be known, like, look, bro, you can have your fun, but wait till we do it. Wait till we do this first.
Yeah,
you see what I'm saying?
Make it appropriate.
And when I look at like the last year's team, we was around all year long. We was out. Yeah. We never see these guys.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So that to me, they had something here that say, man, look, we're gonna be all about football. Yeah, we can go out and leave your house, but make sure you leave your house in close proximities where you can get back to and make sure you at work.
If you need me to help you get home, you call me. Like a culture is connectivity.
Yeah.
Do your team has connectivity. This team last year had the same heartbeat. All right, they had connectivity through been through.
Yeah.
It showed. I thought it showed more when they lost, not when they won. I thought it showed more when they was dusting themselves off and getting back up.
Yeah.
All right, when I think about culture, first play come to my mind, I think about Jaden Daniels. After running 8 plays in a row, they call a timeout. He goes to the knee.
Yeah.
Marcus Mariota goes out there and say, get up.
Yeah.
Get up. They see you down,
You're right.
they'll get down.
You're right.
That's culture. And that's a non-starter talking to a starter.
Yeah.
Everybody would think, oh, no, it wasn't the Hail Mary. No, it ain't the Hail Mary. Because everything we do before that game and after that game is the only thing that makes that game.
Yeah, and I keep going back to like why, like, and it's so nebulous, right? Because like you're winning games in 2005, 2007, right, Tana? But you don't have the leadership, right? I think about like, you know, and it goes back to the standard and like who's setting the standard. And I think about Bobby, I think about Zach, I think about Austin, I think about Marcus, guys that have been around the league for a long time here.
Yeah.
And they said it. And I think about us in 2012, right? And everyone thinks, oh, like Robert set the culture, but it was really like, it was like Corey Lichtensteiger.
Yeah.
It was, you know,
Santana
and London.
Yeah.
And these guys that were like, then those you could look to them like a lighthouse. You know, it'd be dark outside. You look and be like, okay, that's the direction we got to go.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And like, you do need that.
You
and
need
so
that.
like, I think it's the standard of behavior of professionalism, right? The selflessness.
Yeah.
And I also think it's the connectivity, like the friendship, because it allows me to pull people with me. It allows me to go to Fred and be like, hey man, that ain't it.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna, and Fred's not gonna be sensitive.
Yeah. No.
Because we're friends.
Yeah, thank you.
You know what I'm saying? Like, oh.
And if you bringing it up to me, it must be serious.
Yeah.
So and that's why I know for a fact I didn't have it 2 years here.
Yeah.
05, I told you, 05 I walked out to get ice and everybody was scattering like little
Like
roaches.
cockroaches.
Like, bro, where y'all going? Oh, boy, curfew. They done came by my room already.
Yeah.
And we went out there and kicked behind the next day.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so damn, what we got going on over here? You can just be loosey-goosey.
Yeah.
And it caught up to us at one point in the game.
But
I mean, one point in the season.
I love that's how you talk about it though, because you're so the opposite of that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Because I'm like, bro.
But then I look at myself and I would agree with you, Tana, but like I agree with you because
That's how you operate.
brought me up.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
But
Like,
that's how you operate.
you didn't know you were bringing me up. But
Yeah,
you brought
but you
me
were
up,
just
you know what I'm
watching.
saying?
He's right.
Yeah.
I have been in the bushes. And I'm like, did I just hear this bush round? And I look up and it's another player behind the bush. And we waiting on it, the cars to pass so we can go about doing it. And that's what he's talking
That's what I'm
about.
saying. So, like, I just came from New York, and I just told you. I shared with you in New York, bro. 3 out of my 4 years there, we won. And that was a culture there. It was a bunch of older men.
Yeah, it was an older culture.
And they showed us young pups what to do, how to practice, how to hang out after practice, you know, how far you can go. Yeah, you in New York City. Like, it's so much to do. But they told us there's a time and a place. Yeah. And then there was a certain time of the week where they say, okay, once we get our work done, go out Friday night, Tanner. You go out and have your good time Friday night. Or go out Thursday night when you know Friday's not going to be that hard of a work day. You know, but make sure, by the time we get in here Saturday, it's time to go. You know what I mean? So when I got here,
so
having those experiences as a young pup, I got here was like, bro, I ain't never seen as many people leaving or going. The guys had other rooms where they wanted to play cards at. They didn't necessarily just leave and leave out the hotel premises. They just went to other rooms, play cards, hang out, watch.
So we can say it's hard for somebody to say, I'm bringing culture with me.
It's hard.
Because the ingredients ain't really, you don't use this. I know what I'm going to use to make spaghetti. I know the ingredients. Ingredients to and do my culture has to morph and change as my team changes over the years?
Dude, I think that's 100% right. I think Kansas City is a great example of this, right? Like when Mahomes was young.
They was an offensive dominated team.
But it was an offensive line, running back, like they led the way, right? And then as it switched, Mahomes and Travis Kelce set the culture, right? They set the standard. And thank God that they're good standards and good role models, right? Because that works role. And I think about, and that's why I think what Dan and Adam did here was so, and we're going to talk about it with him in a second, which is going to be so fun, was so unique. It's because Dan knows what good culture is.
Yes.
He brings a standard, but I can stand up in front of a room of people who've never seen a standard before, and it's going to fall on deaf ears. You need people in the room. And so I think back to when Ron was here, and again, this is not a bag on Ron time, but one of the things about Ron is when you talked to Ron, he knew what a culture was, but he got rid of Ryan Kerrigan.
All the culture guys.
He got rid of guys that could help you get that message.
You can bang on him. I bang don't spur you.
Yeah.
Like this is a safe space.
But I know I got nothing bad to say about Ron as a person, but I think that's an oversight. And if I'm making a team, I got to keep that in mind. Like it's not me setting the culture.
Yeah.
I need people in the room that get it.
The building itself is a culture.
Do we predicate culture on the wins?
No.
That's what I'm saying. Because you can have a culture and not be
I'm gonna
a
tell
winning
you
football
the
team.
culture. We just brought up coach.
That's a great
2
question.
years ago felt different, and I'm just a worker here.
Yeah.
Felt different than me walking through those doors this year. And I just work in media.
Yeah.
It felt like a home when I walked in here since Dan Quinn has been in here.
Yeah.
It felt like a family since it's been in here.
Yeah.
It felt like a place that we come in to get the peak work out of everybody, no matter what you're doing in this building, and we're going to do it as a family.
Yeah.
That's how it felt. It did not feel like that 2 years ago.
Well, I will also ask this question, and this is not to, this is this me, because I want to, feel what you guys believe or understand how you see it. Do it start from the top up? Do it start from ownership?
Top. It does. It does.
Shoot, I mean,
it does.
I didn't. If you would have asked me when I was playing, I would have said no. It's the coaches.
It doesn't matter. No,
but after seeing it,
yeah,
it does. Because I mean, I think about because it's like he made a good hire. He hired Josh Harris hired Adam Peters.
Yeah.
And then he supported Adam Peters in his decision making. That's leadership.
Yeah.
That's culture. It's saying, hey man, we want to be a first class organization. And think about, like when Tresh signed his contract here the other day, he had his family here, there's people clapping, they're bringing him in. Yeah. Think that never happened.
No.
Before.
Wasn't gonna happen because it wasn't about the people.
Yeah.
It was about the brand.
Yeah.
And that's all it was about. And now they have switched it and said it's about the people and the brand of shine because guess what? The people gonna sell the brand. And that's what it's about. And now since it's about people and that starts with ownership, the Harris Group, all of these guys. They said, you go handle the football, we're going to go handle the business part because we need to all meet in the middle here. And we're going to go handle, you say the facilities ain't good enough, we're going to work on that. You say the stadium ain't good enough, we're going to work on that. You say this need help, this need to be renewed, we're going to do our part. Simply saying, guys, ain't no use to coming back here against Cincinnati. Go on to Arizona. We will take care of a week of financial. Don't you worry about that. We want to set y'all up to win. That's all we want to do.
I mean, it's true, man. It's a great point. It's like when you get that support, it happens. And I think what we've, culture's hard. Right? But I do think the environment was set up so that it would work. And you made good decisions. And I think, and I go back to this too, it's not, if you have a good culture, you're not winning games necessarily, but I will say it helps you buy in.
And it buys you time to get to winning. Let's look at one of our compadres in the NFC, the Dallas Cowboys. Do you think that, I don't care what coach goes in there. The culture can't change because the culture starts with Jerry Jones. Jerry is the culture over there. So we seeing what goes on when your culture is set, who sets the culture, and we have seen Bill Parcells, Hall of Fame coach. We just seen a Super Bowl winning coach get kicked out of there because they can't change the culture because the culture is the brand is bigger than the players. And therefore, you got people walking through while they lifting weights, looking at them like a petting zoo.
That is crazy.
That's the culture of the biggest brand in sports is the brand matters, not the players.
Yeah, and I think, look at, just staying in the division, look at Philly, right? They kept a lot of old guys around.
Graham has played there for 2 decades.
For a long time. And there's a cultural element to that, right? Because it's like you want some continuity from the players, right? And the coaching staff so that they can establish what you're talking about. So I do think the winning helps people buy in. It helps you buy longevity. And it says, hey, this is working for us. Let's make it go.
Longevity. Lance, the Johnson, that tackle. All right.
Oh, yeah, Lane. Yeah.
Lane, he's been there decade plus. Fletcher Cox played there decade plus. Brandon Graham played there decade plus. These guys didn't switch jerseys ever.
Yeah.
And then you actually went to a Super Bowl, lost a lot of those players. Took a year off. Actually started that next year off on fire. Found yourself, spiraled out of control. Then brought it back the year later and win it. So,
same players.
So the culture was in place. It just
I think that's a really good example of what I'm talking about, Tana. It's so for example, Hurts and AJ Brown apparently don't get along. But when you're winning games, everyone gets along.
Yeah. But it's so funny how they used to be best friends growing up in high school. I mean, well, they didn't go to the same high school, but they both got drafted in baseball out of high school. Like, they was always close. I don't know what has caused this. Maybe it's the book reading class he in or something. I don't know.
Now, you know what's caused it. If you ain't throwing a diva the ball, he got a problem.
and the one thing we know about Jalen Hurts, he will hold that ball and miss some throws.
Yeah, but I think long story short, right? It's multifactorial. There's lots of things that go into it.
Yeah.
I do think winning helps. It's not the only thing, like Tana pointed out with his example, but I think it's been, for me, just a ton of fun to watch it all come together. So last question then before Dan gets here, but based on the recent free agent signings, re-signings and trades, how do you feel about the culture going into 2025? You know, and does it feel like it's taking us the next step?
It's growing.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm a part of a growing, living organism. And we was in phase 1 of the organism, and we just didn't know that the organism was going to be that big. So the only way to even get on that level again is to go retool. Like, and I think what he did a great job of is saying, who sets the bar? And it's the Philadelphia Eagles. The Super Bowl winners sets the bar. Where are we lagging behind? Trench warfare within. We got the heart we need. We got the quarterback we need. We got the guys we need. But that's one place where they were clearly a step bigger and a step better. And I think he didn't go out there and get the best athletes. He went out there and got the athletes that fit what he's trying to do. And I admire a coach and a GM when they do stuff like that, because then you're not letting the market dictate you. You are dictating the market.
Yeah, I think one of the things that stands out is when you see a team have so much success, out the gate like we did, the first thing you hear from the naysayers, because, we the only ones going to believe, oh, well, they ain't going to be able to top that next year. Or they ain't going to be able to, duplicate that. And it's not about doing that. It's still about having consistency. And the consistency part about this league is, do I give my franchise a chance to compete every year? You understand? And so when you see us, because you're going to lose players. It's going to be a revolving door here, when it comes to players. Now you go out there and say, what did they do this offseason? They went out there and got better.
They got better.
And they didn't just get better by saying, okay, we picked a whole bunch of guys. Where we missed out and lost a player or two at, we brought in a guy that's either equal or better. But now you have to go out there and get those guys caught up to speed to what you do. That's not going to be hard when you got good talent. It's not going to be hard when you got good people. It's not going to be hard when you got good ball players. So I think just when it comes to prematurely, yes, I can honestly say that we've gotten better with just going out there and getting the guys that's needed. But now they got to get coached up and go out there and play.
Saying, can y'all do it again next year? First of all, they were like, oh, the league going to catch up to him. They ain't caught up with Lamar Jackson yet.
Because Lamar's getting better.
Thank you.
And I think that's one of the reasons about, Jaden, that I get so excited is because he's a guy that seems like he's motivated to get better.
Just scratching the surface. They ain't catch up with tempo yet, have they? All right.
Well, and I think to Tana's point, like I look at the guys they brought in, like Dietrich Wise, Eddie Goldman, Jacob Martin, Jonathan Jones, right? Will Harris and Javon Kinlaw, and like they are, because we go back to the culture conversation. Like two of those guys come from Super Bowl winning teams. Three of those guys, they're getting after it, right? And when you watch them play, like specifically those defensive linemen and Jonathan Jones, you're like, these are pros.
Yes.
And I know I say that a lot on shows that I do. And one of the things fans are like, what does that mean? It's just like a guy you can set your watch by. That is the standard.
I often say a standard setter.
Yes.
A standard setter.
And so you can trust that guy to come in and adopt the culture, study the book, not go out all crazy, understand the ebbs and flows. I can go out and have a good time, but when can I do that, right? Like, that's what the guy is.
James Thrash, epitome of a pro's pro. Darrell Green, the epitome of a pro's pro. Now these scopes of talent, they got different what's the names in it, but a pro. Chris Samuels. Chris don't get enough love from. We named him Big Pro because he's a pro's pro. Somebody that just sets the standard. Yeah.
So obviously, like we talked about culture quite a bit, and we can talk about culture all day based on our experience. But man, we are excited to have Dan Quinn pop in here and tell us how it really works. And that's coming up next. All right, the moment you've all been waiting for. Dan Quinn in the building. Coach, as always, appreciate you joining us. How's the offseason been so far?
It's been good, man. Just kind of going through the whole process of it, from it starts the free agency piece to it, take a little break, do the, the combine portion of things. And then, as the guys come in, some new players we've added, signing some guys back, and then from the coaching standpoint, getting ready for the draft, but also like putting the touches on the new things, that we want to emphasize for the spring.
Coach, you've been a coach for a while. Does it ever change that preparation part, like when the season over, whether you had a long season or a short season?
Yeah.
Do anything ever change for you in the process of saying, okay, we got to get back on the board to what we need to do to be better going into this offseason, or vice versa?
I think you learn, right, as you go, and you want to make sure the players here have created an environment they want to play football together, man. And so I think what's important is making sure the new players that get onboarded here, like they understand the standards and things we want. It's not easy to go from one club to another club and find that battle rhythm quickly. So I think it's important for the coaches to make sure we're getting these new teammates up to speed quickly. And so they can, enter into the off season with the same knowledge and the scheme, or they're not trying to think and play slowly. So that's an important one. And then always like what's changing in the game, what
rules change,
yes,
stuff like that.
What things do we have to adjust, going into things. So I like, as opposed to me being the only one, we all think about that, as the whole staff. And so what do we need to change? What do we need to do different? What do we need to do the same? And if we apply that, then there will be some things that change.
Gotcha.
How do you marry every section of coaching? Because everybody like to talk about the sideline, the game time stuff. To me, this is administration time because it goes from free agency, it goes to the draft, it goes to almost the paper pushing part of it.
Yes.
How do you as a coach kind of flip the switch?
You're right, man.
Is it a family
I miss
thing?
the players not being here all the time. That's why I coach, So like the part that when they're not here isn't as fun, but it is the time that you have to use to feature the guys in unique ways. What do we know now about somebody we didn't know a year ago? How do we add a new player, into the system? What does Debo look like into it? What about Laramie and how does he fit in, and the things that we would do differently with them into it? So it's not that there is an administrative part. There's a lot of planning. And I think what you also want to make sure that you do is really dig in on the draft part of things. Once somebody's in your bloodstream, like they're with you. And so you want to make sure you add in the right, crew into it.
Build them up.
Yes, because if it's not, then you can make some mistakes to say, man, this is a good player, but he might not be the right fit for how we get down.
Yeah, I think that's something interesting because you're talking a lot about the guys and like how they fit, and into something that you've already built. Like you and Adam Peters have built this great culture here, and like we were talking about before you came in, like you need to get the right kind of people in. You need to set the culture. You talk about that process and how you kind of make those decisions to define something as nebulous as like culture, for example.
Yeah, that's good. And like even the types of players that you're looking for, I think a year ago, these were the players we hoped we would add. But now I think people have seen this is the way we want to play. So you've actually seen those people come in and how we want to feature them and how we want to play them. From a culture standpoint, we want to make sure, man, like really high standards of people. Like we want to push them high and see, we have these really high standards for you and we expect you to meet them. And so like for the person that's down for that, that's down to put the work in to find their way to go do that. And if they are, and they've shown that, and they've got that kind of toughness, then like, hey man, there's a spot for you here. We'll find what your football superpower is and then try to throw you into that environment as much as we can.
We were going back and forth, kind of bickering like old ladies before you came in on what is culture. Like we were saying, if we had some words to define culture, because we were like, you know what? We have saw different cultures. I played for Coach Gibbs, which is a different culture than Marty Schottenheimer, who I played for. And we talked about Miami Heat culture. And like, if you had to define it, because I think I said connectivity.
Yeah, you said a bunch of words.
Yeah, connectivity, standard. It's because it's different. Like what works for my marriage might not work for your marriage.
That's correct.
So if you had to put it into words, Coach, what would that be?
Yeah, I think it's the standards of how you get down every day. Because people ask me that question a lot. And sometimes people can confuse environment and culture. And environment, you can be positive and have good juice and good energy, but that doesn't mean that you're going to play tough and play it right. Like the culture is, man, like how you do things all the time.
Over and over.
Yeah, how you do your meetings, how you do, like just like you were saying, like Marty and Coach Gibbs had it differently, how they structured practice, what was important to them. So as long as it's the same, all the time, and a ball player doesn't have to come in and one day it's this way and one day it's that way, man. Like, if it's going to be one way, let's make it that way all the time. And if you can do that over and over, the best team cultures I've been in is like the players recognize that.
Yeah.
And the locker room recognizes that.
And they organically spread it for you.
Yes. And if they know this is, hey, man, our way to play football and we love doing that, then it becomes their culture. And that's way more powerful than
Coming from
somebody
you.
else saying, this is what you should do. No, when you hear players say, this is how we play, like this is what Commander football looks like, smells like, feels like, then I can encourage that culture and, throw some gas on it.
Yeah.
But
It's like raising your first child.
Yes.
If you raise him right,
that's right.
you spread the word.
Yes. Now, it don't always work that way.
Don't push daddy now. Don't push daddy.
But it is, I think, the standard of how you do things all the time. Like, hey, man, this is what we do on Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays. This is how we travel. This is how we play. And so there becomes a consistency in that. And if you have a culture that stands for things like hardworking or, playing really, whatever that looks like, you have to emphasize it. And it's got to show up on a regular basis, man.
Yeah.
Like, you can't just be like something that you throw on the wall. Like, that ain't how you get down.
No,
Like,
this is our DNA.
yeah, you bullshitting. Like, that's just what you're saying you want to be, but you ain't.
Yeah.
I think you have to do that. And
I kinda wanna
all three
pick-
of you guys have had it once. You've been part of it. And so it's cool. Like, when you're in it, you know it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard though. It's
Yeah,
hard to
yeah.
like know it. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
Like,
It's
it's
hard
like
to
you know
touch,
it,
see.
but like
You can feel it. You can't
Yes.
touch or see it, but you can feel it.
Yes.
We was all talking about different cultures we've been a part of, and I remember playing in New York, having Mo Lewis, Marvin Jones, and those guys on my team. Is it important to have that kind of leadership in your locker room, so when you bring in these young guys, you have the kind of, I guess you can say, the key factors there, that, like the Bobby Wagners?
Yeah, it is important. And what would you guys have all paid as a young cat to say, man, like, if I'd give anything to have somebody help take me
To the next
standards
level.
and to that next spot. So I think it's who those people are. They don't have to be leaders in terms of loud, but they have to have a really high standard of what like professional football could look like. And I think that's important. Sometimes coming out of college, you're not even sure what it's supposed to look like.
going on?
yeah.
You just playing football.
Like, hey, man, like, this is how we do it. And so having somebody show you that, give you that example, that's important. And if people like Wagner can be that standard for others, I might not be there yet. And when you come in as a rookie, hell, you ain't going to be. But now it gives me something to say, okay.
Something to look at.
Something to shoot for, some name.
And maybe some people can hang with Wagner. There's a lot that can't.
Yeah.
Just because it's December at, 6 a.m. Not back in May. Like anybody can do it.
It's like the iceberg.
Yeah.
You see the top. You don't
Yes.
see the work
And
at
then,
the bottom.
Yeah, are you down for doing this in January?
Yeah.
And so those are the types of people that if you see those kind of standards, like they leave an impression.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you said something that we didn't talk about, and like we talked about a lot of different stuff before you got on here, is expectation. And I didn't even really think about that. Like you as a coach having an expectation for the player, and then the players having an expectation for that player is a critical part of their culture. And so like, I guess, what are the expectations for a Commanders football player heading into 2025?
Well, I think number one, we expect them all to get better. And those gaps can be different, Logan. The gaps for the three of you guys to improve towards the end of your career were much different than they were at the start. And so just because the gaps are different doesn't mean like we're all not getting better, myself included. And so that's what I would say we would relentlessly chase is like improvement to get there. And that goes for Tress Way and Bobby Wagner as it does for Dom Hampton and Jaden and Luke McCaffrey and Brandon Coleman. That there is a bigger jump that goes from year 1 to year 2, but that doesn't mean the guy going from year 8 to year 9 can also get better too. And so that's what I would expect us to do as far as like external expectations. I don't really get into that. We just get into getting better, man.
But it was just interesting to hear you talk about it because like I never even crossed my mind. It's like there is something that you can do just by saying like with your kids.
Yeah.
I expect you to be better in school. And that standard makes you better.
I think you have to point out a vision of what they can be.
Sure.
Like why does the player that, comes in, he's undrafted, why does he end up making a long career? Like, this is what we think you can do, man, and do these things really, really well. And if you do that over and over again, like we're going to feature you into those things. So like I've learned a lot, through the NBA or other pro sports, say like, hey man, this is a catch and run player, like boom, boom, or a catch and shoot player, like in basketball. Yeah. And so like you can do that exceptionally well. Like they're gonna find a spot for you. The guy can steal bases. Like, what's the one thing that you can do as good or better than anybody?
Yeah,
sure.
And if you can find that thing, like,
that's key.
we'll find a way to feature you. You know, and so like think about receivers, man. Like some guys can, catch screens, and some guys got deep ball stuff. The great ones can do both, but like not everybody has every single trait down at that position. But if you can get really good at some things, like Logan, you're a great example of that, like in terms of like inline blocking, like
I told him he's the best tight end blocker I ever.
Makes me blush.
No, I told
that's
him.
a real thing.
Stop. No, keep going.
No, I told him John Bates should write him a thank you note because he is the staple of what a blocking tight end is. He added value to that.
100%, and had a standard, and other people looked to that standard, and what could I find the margin to get better, whether I was lowering my stance and my pad level, my takeoff, being more explosive out of your stance. Like those are real things, and everybody has those margins. And if you can find the thing that you're exceptional at, then like, man, you got a real shot to make your mark.
I was born 25 years too early.
Didn't get to play with the man.
I'm just 25 years too early, man.
Instincts, ball skills, head coaching right there, man. You can always do that. 25, early, late. You always had that.
Tell you about his back? He blew his back out at the
vacuum in my car. That's what I do. I'm getting old. It's fine. I'm fine.
Get the trainers. Coach, thanks so much for stopping by, man.
Thank you, Coach.
Really appreciate it. Always a great education.
All right, thanks, guys.